would say essentially some arbitrary thing. So you might say tree, and then you could go look up your exam by tree. And I'd look up tree and what was the grade for tree, and that would prevent them from having to post people's names. And trying to post people's names sequentially by the grade. So then you just go look your name up. It's way down there. Now I'm really in trouble. Okay, so here you can look up things, and you can look it up by name. You could look it up by HSN. You could look it up by location, and this can actually implement what's known as content index memory, sort of, where you can look up the item using sort of arbitrary information. So an array, by contrast, you can look up contrast and information and an integer. In other words, you could say, what is array neighborhood indices of I, where I is 0 or 1 or 2? And that's really fast to do that. But you have to know under what I to look it up. Here, you could look up, okay, for a person named such and such, what is the information? So for a person in your model, this could be, the key here could be a reference to person. You say for that person, they were, their number of times they infected anyone with such and such. Or for this person, their influence over the course of simulation was such and such, or what have you, or their location was such and such, okay? And it turns out there's different ways of implementing this, a hash map and a hash table, which I'm not going to go into. There's some, yeah.
So I was just wondering, so could it be kind of like a patient chart? So like for a given patient, it could provide like when you were diagnosed with something,
Exactly.
when you were treated, and all that sort of stuff?
That's right.
And it all puts it all together in one place?
Yeah, you could store it all in one place. Now, there's an important question of if you have patients individuated, in other words, distinguished in the model as agents, then, for that case, you might just store it within them, store it associated with them. But there are some times where you might want to have information on that's external to the person. Like maybe it's more about you want to be able to look up pairs of people that were ever in contact and find out yes or no was there transmission between that pair. Okay? In which case you could have a dictionary that maps from pairs of individuals, maybe sorted in some order, or maybe not, to true or false. And if it's not in the list, if it's not in the list at all, they never were in contact. If it's in the list and it's false, they were in contact, but there was no transmission. If they're in the list and the answer is true, in other words, it looks up to true, they were in contact, but there was transmission. Or maybe you record not only whether or not there was transmission, but the time of the contact, the last time of the contact, and information on the proximity of the contact or the nature of the contact. You can store all that information in there. And that's not information per se about the person. It's about pairs of people. So you might not store it in the person. You might store it in main.
So it's kind of like a level up, like you have a patient chart and above that you have an electronic health record if you want to know.
Yeah, or information about a ward, it's a group of people. If a ward is itself reified as an object, as an agent. I'm just thinking there's some things which are specific to agents, and for the most part we store those in the agents themselves, but sometimes we have information that transcends a particular agent or that's on arbitrary groupings of agents. Maybe it's on, for the CWD model, maybe it's, you have a mapping from groups of deer, where those groups ever together, or maybe you have groups of size 2, and you find you could. So the key here would be of the integer. Okay, groups of size 2. There's all these different ones that were of size 2. This deer was with that deer. This deer was with this other. Groups of size 3 was these deer. Groups of size 4 it was these deer, or something like that. It's just not everything is about the agent themselves, and so those things that aren't, you might store elsewhere. But yes, you could sort electronic health record, but again, the electronic health record type information, stylized version of that might be in the patient record, in the patient themselves, because it's about them. Whereas information on dyads, carer, carer KE, caree, cared for and caring individuals, those might be stored in a hash table, or a dictionary that maps from sort of that to information about them or something. Okay. So we might have a string that maps from maybe a string that maps from we could have a map from potentially from something like the current state somebody's in to the actual people who are in that state, or something like that, if you really wanted to find all the people who are infected at the current time or something. You can do it by iterating through, but maybe we want to maintain that information somehow in a separate place. Find all the people who are in this demographic subgroup as dictated by a cube of sort of possible correspondences. Okay, so what's associated with the dictionary? Two collections. Collection of keys and a collection of values, and each key can be used to look up a value. Okay, so you can really rapidly insert things here, and you can insert items. This is insert items by associating information. The cons are, well, okay, I don't want to get into it. It can be a larger data structure, but that's okay. So imagine looking up city characteristics based on names or something like that. Or, well, again, on a personal level, you could maintain a list, a collection of, maybe it's a linked list, maybe it's an array list, of which cities they've ever lived in. Right? That would be kind of a useful thing. Okay, well, I'm not gonna comment on that. Let's talk about sets. So there's some slight differences if you're interested between HashTable and HashMap about whether they allow things in them that are null. Can you look up a null key or have things that are null values for a given key, that sort of thing. So could you have someone who never visited any city? Yeah. Sure.
Before you said something that kind of relates to me, you had